history of Mongolia, if you're named Genghis Khan, which in Mongolian is Genghis Khan, with a ch as opposed to a g and a khan. Khan means king. But Genghis Khan was Temujin, was his birth name, and he was around 1170-ish or so to 1200. The Mongolia area was a bunch of warring tribes in that time. And there's a lot of history tied to Genghis Khan, and still very linked directly to him in a lot of ways. But it was just warring tribe after warring tribe, and no one was safe, and your bride could be stolen in a heartbeat and taken to a different village, and you could be ransacked and killed, and that's how life was there. And not going too much history, but Genghis Khan unified all the people through warfare. Some alliances, but then they conquered and conquered and kept conquering. And what was unique about the Mongolians, as much as they're perceived as being barbarians, they actually had a code of ethics, a law called the Yasa. And they actually, it was almost a circle. If you're on the outside of the Mongolian circle as they're expanding, bad place to be. Brilliant tactician, Genghis Khan was. Very great warriors, had used the horse amazingly well. They adopted technology. If you're on the outside being attacked, it was a bad place. Once you're on the inside, it was a great place. Freedom of religion, safety. There was really not much of a caste kind of system. It was very peaceful within the Mongolian society. There wasn't much intrigue, a little bit, not much, but compared to that time, it was absolutely unheard of. So there was actually a lot of culture that came from the Mongolians, and as they expanded, they adopted all the technologies and people they could find. So if you're an artisan, they'd bring you in and adopt you. And even Genghis and the Khans and Genghis's descendants, Kublai Khan, his advisors were Chinese. They didn't care. They were an intelligent advisor. That's all they cared about. And so there was a value on people and skills, which I think still carries to Mongolia today. But as the Mongolians conquered most of Asia, Genghis Khan passed away. There was a little bit of intrigue as to who would succeed, and eventually Kublai Khan, one of his grandchildren, took over and actually moved the capital from Mongolia down to Beijing. He founded Beijing. And I believe it was the Yuan dynasty was actually the Mongolian dynasty. And the Mongols actually ruled China for quite a while. And then as the Mongols conquered, and Kublai Khan's empire went all the way to the Persian Gulf area. And the Mongol and his children took over those areas. And the Mongols were never defeated, actually. They just assimilated the society and eventually just became whatever culture there were. And so I've read that Genghis Khan actually has the most descendants of any historical figure the past 2,000 years, because his descendants went all over Europe and were the ruling class, and then just assimilated those societies. And eventually then Mongolia kind of became, there was, then the Chinese got the Mongols out, and they built a very large wall. Actually, they rebuilt the wall. The wall was built, 1,000 years before, but they rebuilt the wall. And then the Mongols and Chinese kind of fought on and off, and eventually I think the Chinese seized some control, but then the Russians helped the Mongolians keep the Chinese out, I believe in the 20s. I think it's called the Holstein, and Mongolia kind of came from that point, from that way out of Chinese culture, more Russian culture. And then when the communist bloc fell in, I think it was 1990-ish or so, 89 to 91, the Russians kind of took their toys and left. They took everything they had with Mongolia, a lot of infrastructure, cut off the bus benches, and took them with them and left Mongolia in shambles in a lot of ways. It was when I was there, it was a scavenger hunt to find food and anything you might need. It took a while to kind of build up the trade in a capitalist society as opposed to a communist society. But we buy jam that was made in the USSR. Yeah, so we had Soviet stuff still there. But they then transitioned into democracy, and it had really a relatively stable democracy since then. Sometimes it elected communists into power, but it's been a democracy, which has been interesting. So a little history of that I know of Mongolia. There's a lot more to it, but that's a thumbnail sketch.